Yeah, that's the way it was in the old
Well, let's see now. There was a lot of Old Testament history down there in that area, wasn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
See, what?
Well, you could understand the parables and everything better.
Oh, because the lifestyle was more similar?
Just exactly like when Jesus said, "The sower went out to sow." That's the way my dad went out to sow.
Throw it.
He hung a sack around his with the opening here. He had that full of grain, and then he'd take, and then every step that he took, he tossed it. So that had to, if he'd take 2 steps and then toss, then there would be a streak left over. And so he would just sow, and he would throw that, and then he'd come back. The next would come back, and when that grain came up, that was just as sown as if it was sown with a machine here. And then when it came time for reaping, they had these short sickles, and they'd grab the whole wheat and just cut it off and lay it down, and until they had about 14 or 15 of those bunches, and the wheat was this tall. They lay that down, and then they'd take 2 strings and tie them together. That grain was tough. I mean, that straw. They'd wrap it around together, and then they'd wrap that around and make a shock out of it. A bundle.
A bundle, and then they'd stack a few bundles and have a shock?
No, we didn't. They just left it like it was, and then we had a wagon.
You know what it means when the wind blows away the chaff too? Huh? Like the wind bloweth the chaff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You how did you thresh it then? Or?
Well, we had a great big. In the backyard was a great big flat area. I would say about 60 feet in diameter, and that was round. And in the middle was a pole. And then when the wheat was cut, and they'd leave those sheaves laying there on those shocks, and then we'd come with the wagon and we'd take the box off of the wagon and put ladders on each side. In that word is dry shimmel. That's a place where the box sits in. You've seen wagon boxes, don't you? Okay, that place there.
Where the stakes would fit in?
Where the stakes in. They put stakes in there with a hook in it. And then they'd hook a ladder over it, and then another ladder over that one, and another ladder over that one. And that didn't make the wagon so heavy. And they were 20 feet long, and that's where we piled the shocks in. First they would go over the first ladder, and then when that was laid full, then put another ladder up and then fill it over that. And then finally the third one, we had it all loaded up and bring it home. Then when they come home with it, then they would unload those shocks, and they'd have to cut that piece of straw that was wrapped around them. They'd cut that in 2, and then they'd lay that with the ears all this way around this circle. The head's always to one end. Then the next row would come against this other row, and there was a row of grain.
So the heads were here, and then the heads are right here.
Yeah.
The heads would face each other. Like.
The heads were always toward the pole.
All towards the center.
All toward the pole.
All toward the pole.
So the second row would come like this on top.
This is the first row, and the second was here, and the third one, till that whole thing was full. And then we'd take and we had a round stone that had a hole through the middle, and a shaft in there. And then they'd had a kind of a frame hooked around it, and they hooked the horses on that, and they'd pull that stone. And that stone would bump, bump, bump over the grain, and that was beardless wheat.
That's the way you thrashed it?
That's the way they thrashed it.
And
they'd go in circle. And then they'd get a little further out until they finally the whole circle was done. And this was the first shock, and this was the next one. He'd have to roll over, and here he'd go little double, and finally always so that this one get another pound over it.
Okay, so they'd hit each one twice, and they'd overlap to hit each one twice.
Yeah, they didn't overlap the grain, but they overlapped the rolling.
The rolling,
yeah. and then they pounded that out. And then when he got over to the outer circle, that took quite a while to pound that all out. Just as soon as they got out of that outer circle, then Mother and Dad would go in the middle, and they had forks made out of wood.
The women had to help there.
Yeah, they had forks that they were about this wide. They were made out of wood with the tines about this long, and then they would shake that straw a little bit and pile it up, and then the hired man, he had a 10-foot pole with a cross beam in it, and they'd rake that straw together to where that looked like like a roll, and then he'd stick that straw through there and raise that up and walk out about 40 feet away and lay it down. And that all that straw, when that came off, well, there was a plain grain laying there. It had been pounded out with the chaff in it.
So they wouldn't lose much grain that way then. It would all come off the...
Yeah, there wasn't a bit of that kind of a grain. Irrigated grain was so full and so puffy that it easily fell out of the hulls. And but then the hull also came off. This was just mostly just a straw. And he'd take that and pile it over there, and we saved all that straw for heating, for fuel in the wintertime. And we had a stack higher than this house, and about 60 feet long that we had, and then a double layer, and then he knew how to tie it in so it would stay.
How could he ever get it piled so high?
He walked up. He walked
on top
up.
Of it?
He walked from the lower side up, and when he had the back part where he crisscrossed it, where it was so high, and then he just kept backing off. And when
so he had to climb clear up there each time that he took a forkful.
Yeah, and I remember Cece, he was a little boy, and he had to have one of them too. He had to carry straw like that. Dad had to humor him and let him carry that whenever it was full of. And the old hired hand didn't like that because he messed the stack up. He wouldn't pile it down where it was. But anyway, that's the way that was. Then when all of that straw was off, then they would take and shove that straw with like almost the same thing like you have where you shove snow. A kind of a board like this, and had a handle on it, and they'd push all that grain into the center. And then they'd go after some more and shovel this up, and there was a great big pile of grain in there in the middle. And the next day they'd come on.
They'd get a little windy and it'd blow all the chaff away, huh?
There was no wind.
There was no wind.
And we had what we call a fan, a mill that had a fan in it, and it had a hopper on top. And when it was time for all the grain was in, then they'd run that through there and turn the fan, and it'd blow the chaff out to the back end of it. And
so you had a machine to do that.
Yeah, they had a machine.
You didn't have to throw it up in baskets.
They used to do that, but then
how did they operate the fan? Did the horses have to do that?
No, they had a crank.
Crank it by hand?
The hired man had to stand there and turn the crank.
That's like turning a mimeograph machine.
There was one man, he was rich enough to buy, he already bought a thrashing machine, and they run it with steam, and his name was Pauls. And whenever
Pauls, P-A-U-L-S.
Pauls. And he'd run that, and whenever he'd thrash it, farmers were too poor to hire him to do that, and it was stationary, it wasn't on wheels. It was the same thing that we had, where he'd run that fan with a steam belt and turn that faster. But then the thrashing was the same. And then when that was all clean wheat over there, and the chaff was over here, then they carried all that chaff into a shed, and that was horses' feed in the wintertime. And the wheat was sacked, and that they carried that up in the second floor, and that was enough for for flour.
Did you didn't sell any? You just used it all for your own
Yeah,
use?
we sold some of it when we had too much. And every now and then Dad would take 3 or 4 sacks full of grain and drive to Uncle Jansen, that was Mom's brother. Mrs. Jansen was Mom's sister. He had a mill, and he had a water mill, water power. And they'd take it over there and he'd grind that and make flour out of it and send us the flour. Dad go after the flour. And they had some small stones like the Indians here had. No, the Indians didn't have that kind of stones. But then there was a flat stone at the bottom, and then there was another stone that would fit right over it, but it had a hole in the middle here. And then a strip over that hole so that it couldn't go out. And then on the outside here was a handle where you would turn that stone and you put the corn or the coffee or anything like that in that hole. That hole was big. And then you turn it and then pretty soon that'd start working itself on the outside. You'd have your flour or your coffee or anything was ground up.
That's where you got your
had at home?
stone ground flour that
That
way.
was stone ground flour. They couldn't, that stone couldn't get away because of this peg was in the middle here. That
Did the
kept-
stone ever break off and give you a...
No,
A rock in your flour?
no, that was
That was verboten, huh?
that was a stone that never did wear off or put.
You must have had some granite, or you must have
Yeah,
had pretty hard
it
rock.
was pretty hard stones what they had. Yeah, that's the way it was in those days.